I don't even want to say that. I'm not even going to say it. I'm going to say this, though. We need to be more turnover minded. We need to be more thinking about getting our hands on the football than just breaking up passes. Welcome to the Indy Drills podcast, the podcast that talks about secondary play, defensive backs, and all things pass coverage. Happy to have you guys here with me. We've got plenty to talk about on the show today. Secondary struggles for this one NFL team that we need to try and understand. They need to fix this really quick, fast, and in a hurry. A couple of players, and we'll say a whole unit, had a day in the NFL on Sunday. We need to talk about that. Some exceptional play taking place in the secondary. We also need to talk about bunch sets, condensed sets, what that's doing. We also need to talk about finding that football. All right. We have got to find a football. Too many guys not putting themselves in position to make plays. Speaking of that, you got to talk back there in the secondary. So we're going to help some guys out with that, get you where you need to be so that you can set yourself up for high-level play in the secondary. That and more coming up on today's show. Of course, sponsored by this great book right here, 101 DB Tips, the best defensive football guide out there for you for defensive backs. All right, all kinds of great stuff in here. How to study film, how to play nickel, how to play corner, how to play safety. All of the things that you need to go out and hit your maximum levels as a defensive back right here in this book, 101 DB Tips. Have a link to it down in the description below. So let's just jump into things. The team that is having problems in the secondary, if you have not been noticing, is the Dallas Cowboys. What is going on back there? Last week, it was Russell Wilson throwing for 450. This Russell Wilson. This is the same Russell Wilson that you saw continuously throw the ball out of the back of the end zone Sunday night against Kansas City Chiefs and actually doing it on fourth down, like not even giving anyone a chance to play. I have been a Russell Wilson supporter in the past. I am saying at this point right now, it's likely over for this guy. All right. That's just where I'm at. Now, that same guy that I'm talking about saying these things threw for 450 against the Dallas Cowboys in a division rival game in Dallas, 450. Somehow the Cowboys won that game. They were not as fortunate this week when they took on the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams, who's a very young quarterback in this league. All right. He's barely out of being a freshman quarterback in the NFL. Here's the numbers for him. 19 out of 28, 298, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That is perhaps his best game as a pro. Now, granted, he's got a brand new coach, and he is highly regarded as an offensive coordinator. But in those first 2 games, Caleb Williams did not show this type of ability. But you get him in front of that Dallas defense and that secondary, and he just absolutely went to work. So what is going on? I'm going to just say this. My theory, here's what I think. I don't think the players are jiving with Matt Eberflus's system. As you know, there was a mutiny. Speaking of Chicago, there was a mutiny of sorts with the players in Chicago versus Matt Eberflus. I don't know if it's not been reported that this was just solely defense. It was just the team on some decisions that he made, namely, if you remember, from that Thanksgiving game that they played against the Detroit Lions. But I just know this. You have the kind of corners in Dallas that are man type of guys, all right? These are guys that could press. These are guys that want to play off, and they want to, go jump routes, go get interceptions. We all know what Trayvon Diggs did several years ago. Led the league in interceptions and even threatened the all-time record, 11 interceptions. Deron Bland, a year before, 6 pick sixes. This is the type of secondary that you have. You just acquired Kyer Elam in the offseason. That's a big, long press man corner. They want to play man. And what is happening right now is a system is being forced upon them, which is too high, bunch of quarters, lay off, drop to certain landmarks, and keep everything in front of you. It's a real safe defense. not killing that program, it's not a thing that cornerbacks like these type of guys are going to love. They're just not going to love that at all. They're also playing some match too. I think trying to, in sort of a kind of a way, appease to some of the qualities and skill sets of the cornerbacks. But even that is getting destroyed. And I think what we have here is just a full breakdown in the system. I think the players aren't trusting the system that is being run by the coordinator. So I'm seeing freelancing going on, and it's leading to big breakdowns in the secondary. So instead of a system being brought in that is suitable for the skill set and mentality of the players in that secondary, it's being brought in and forced upon guys who just don't fit this. This would be better suited for a secondary somewhere else. This is not a great hire for Brian Schottenheimer. It's just not. It's just not the system that they need to be running. With that said, it's the system that you got. So my recommendation for the guys in the secondary for Dallas is get with the program, figure out how you're going to run this. I don't think Matt Eberflus is changing his system. It's what he's done wherever he's gone, and he's going to be there. I don't know for how long, but he's there this season. And falling short of him getting fired in the middle of the year, he's there. So you guys just got to make this work. You got to figure it out. You maybe change your mentality a little bit. You might not want to do that. This is how you know football. This is how you know the position. But you can't continue doing this every week. That's almost 750 yards passing, 7 touchdowns and 1 interception in the last 2 weeks. That's not how this thing needs to go. And you play in Dallas, so there's going to be a lot of chatter about it, and it's going to get louder and louder and louder. And fans tend to blame the players first. That's what they're going to do. Okay, you're the guys that are out there. You are the guys that are being seen. The coordinators and the coaches aren't on camera as much. They go and buy you guys' jerseys. That's what happens. So you guys are front and center. They're going to blame you guys. They might not know what's going on behind the walls, but it's just amazing to see this going on. And something's going to have to be done quick, fast, in a hurry there in Dallas. Way too many busts and just breakdowns. I like Caleb Williams as a person, but 298, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. No way. I don't think he'll do that again this year. Quite honestly, I don't think so. But then again, maybe Ben Johnson's like that. And, Caleb Williams is finally catching on, and, he's got a capable play caller. Maybe he does do it again. He's just not that guy right now. And for the Cowboys, you're going to need to fix this stuff quick, fast, in a hurry. You've got a motivated Green Bay squad coming into town. And if anyone can put up 300, 400 yards passing on you, it would be these guys right here, especially since they just lost to Cleveland and are feeling quite the embarrassment about that. If there aren't some heavy changes made quick, fast, and in a hurry in Dallas this week, we're looking at another horror show with Jordan Love and the boys coming into town. Again, pissed because of what happened in Cleveland, the freaky loss that they had there. And, for that matter, you've got some guys coming up down on the schedule that are, probably going to take full advantage of you if something's not done really fast. Washington, Denver, Arizona, those are teams that'll light you up. And though he hasn't been playing well, Geno Smith in Las Vegas, he can hit you on that deep ball. You have Philadelphia again, Kansas City, Detroit. They got to get on this quick, fast, and in a hurry. I think I've said that enough times. Sliding over to things that went well on Sunday. You can't have a better day than what Isaiah Rodgers of the Minnesota Vikings had on Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals. This man had a pick six, 87 yards, I believe it was, 87-yard pick six, forced another fumble, scooped it up, runs it back for a touchdown, then forces another fumble on the Bengals' top player, Jamar Chase. He was just stuffing the stat sheet. That's how you want to play. That's how you want to have an impact as a corner. So if we could let's say we just cut the pick six out because it was kind of an overthrow against a backup quarterback. It hit him right in the chest. And, Isaiah Rodgers used all of his speed and God-given ability to run down that sideline. I don't want to take that away from him. He made the play. But let's say that play didn't happen and they weren't really going his way. He still found a way to have an impact by getting in there and punching the ball out. I really have tried to stress this to guys when I coach, teach, train. You've got to make an impact. And the first way to do that is run to the football. Run to the football. The second thing is punch that ball out. Ball carriers thinking about scoring and making guys miss. Not too many guys are really clenching that ball the way that they need to. And to be honest, unless you're doubled over on that football, striking that ball in the right place is always going to dislodge it from the player's hands. If you don't believe me, ask Derrick Henry, who's had 3 straight weeks of fumbling the football in key situations, by the way. After last night's fumble against Detroit, you can get that ball out. Big and as strong as Derrick Henry is, and I don't know if there's a stronger player pound for pound in the league than Derrick Henry, the ball's still getting dislodged from his hands, from his grip. So I would urge all of you guys out there, all of my young corners watching this, don't just get to the football. If you're approaching a ball carrier that doesn't see you coming, or you're approaching a wide receiver because they don't do as many ball security drills as a running back does, you owe it to yourself to reach in that basket, punch that ball out of there, and you could turn a big play for them into a big play for you guys on defense. So kudos to Isaiah Rodgers in a big week that he had 2 defensive touchdowns, 2 forced fumbles, and of course the interception, which was a pick 6. On that note, the Carolina Panthers came alive, and this was all spearheaded by defense. If you fell asleep, let's say you worked a late shift Saturday, you got home Sunday morning, and you slept through all of the games on Sunday. You woke up, opened your score app, and you saw Carolina 30, Atlanta 0. You probably would have deleted the app, reinstalled it because it's giving you bad information. No, that was real. The Carolina Panthers, after losing in a close one, they did come back against Arizona last week, decided to wake all the way up and came out full bore against a division rival. That was a big part of it. And, Atlanta's been playing good football these first couple of weeks. Yes, they were 1-1 coming into the game, lost a really close game to a very good Tampa Bay team, but they looked solid in week 2. So who could see this coming? Nevertheless, like I said, it was all spearheaded by the defense, who I did not know. Going into this game on Sunday versus the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers defense had given up 200 rushing yards in 7 straight games. That's institutionally bad, all right? That has to be some type of record out there somewhere. They were that bad. They had been that bad. And these guys finally decided to wake up and put that goose egg on their division opponent, Atlanta, 30-0, sending them reeling. How bad was it for Atlanta? Michael Penix only completed half of his passes, 18 of 36. He had a 40 passer rating. That's because he threw 2 interceptions in the game. One, a pick 6 for Smith-Wade. Great job by him. And then another one that should have been a long pick 6 by Mike Jackson. I'm still mad at him for that. Like, this guy was home free, down the sidelines, decided to go left when he should have went right. He would have had a very long 80-plus yard pick 6. And so 2 interceptions. They forced a fumble, 3 turnovers. And as you know, they did not find the end zone. How bad was it? Kirk Cousins got in the game for the Atlanta Falcons. And we know how much they love and what they think of Michael Penix. But despite all of that, it got so bad for Penix and the boys that Kirk Cousins found his way into the game in this. So kudos to the Carolina Panthers showing up in a big way. And the secondary had a lot to do with that. Like I said, 2 interceptions. One was a pick 6. The other one should have been a pick 6. And a forced fumble. So good job to that. My question to you guys out there is, right now we've had 3 weeks of NFL play. What secondary do you think is playing the best football in the NFL right now? Drop that in the comment section down below. Would love to hear from you guys. I have my own theory. I don't want to taint any of y'all out there. I have my own team that I think is playing the best in the secondary. Love to hear what you guys think, so hit me down in the comments below as to who you guys think is playing the best in the secondary in the NFL right now through these first 3 weeks. Jumping into our first topic here that I want to talk about, And this has to do with interceptions, and that is finding the football. More and more as I'm watching games, I'm watching guys play, I'm seeing guys in great position. The good news here is that dudes are getting into great position. Whether it's press or they're playing off in their transitions, they're finding themselves at the wide receiver's hip. Some guys are even over the top of routes or near in good phase down the field. And I'm seeing guys that don't want to look for the football. They're not turning their heads around. And then you know what else is happening too? Is that the receivers get away with the push-offs when guys don't look for the ball. I'm just telling you that right now. If you're a guy that's been watching games, so like one big example was Devontae Adams' long touchdown in the game against the Eagles.
Stop. You know you didn't have all the interceptions that you wanted to have this year. So how are we going to fix that problem? I've got two great resources for you. First is my book, 101 DB Tips, chock full of information and tips for you to get your hands on that pigskin. Everything from how to train, how to play man coverage, how to play zone coverage, and a whole lot more. Plus, the All Eyes DB Camp members area breaks down coverages for you, technique, quizzes, all kinds of great things in there that's going to up your knowledge, that's going to get your hands more times on the football this year. Check them out. I have a link in the description down below.
I believe it was Reed Blankenship covering him on it. Definite push-off. Definite push-off. Should it have been called? Absolutely should have been called. But we understand what football is. We understand definitely what the NFL is about. It's fantasy-driven. Guys can bet openly on games now. And fans, you got a lot of casual fans that have jumped onto the NFL right now. So they want to see points. They don't want to see a 10-7 football game in the fourth quarter. So the NFL is going to lean towards offense because that brings fans, that brings viewership, that keeps people interested. We have a very short attention span in this day and age. So points need to be scored. So don't expect stuff like that to be called unless you guys start getting your head around. If you can get your head around and then that hand comes to your back or pushes your chest, you've got a much better chance of getting that call. You got a much better chance of getting the push-off called in that situation. But if you're just staring at the receiver, it puts the referee's mindset in of you're trying to disturb the receiver, and the receiver had no choice but to put his hand out and extend it to try and get some space. That's how they think about this. Now, if you turn your head around, you're trying to make a play on the ball while that receiver's trying to make a play on the ball, and then that hand comes off, you got a much better chance of getting that call. All right. That's only a part of this thing and a smaller part of it. The bigger part of this is getting your head around gives you an opportunity to catch the football. There aren't going to be a lot of times where you're just staring at the receiver's face. You throw your hands up and suddenly you get an interception. And that is the name of the game, right? We do want to get interceptions. It's going to be very difficult for you to catch a football that you never see. Now, I get it. Panic mode slips in. You feel like a guy might have a step on you, or you feel like the moment you turn your head around, the ball is going to be passing at the same time, and it's going to end up in the receiver's hands. I will just ask you this. You're staring at the receiver. How's that working out for you? It looks like they're catching the football anyway. And when they don't catch the football, or even when they do catch the football, the flag comes out and you're getting called for pass interference because you were not trying to make a play on the ball. Yes, football has changed. All right. Pass interference has become a very big play for the offense, and it gets called more often because, again, they want to stimulate offense. They want to generate interest in the games, and that comes from points being scored. So with that being the case, I think defensively, we've got to change our mindset a little bit, and we've got to be a little, I don't even want to say that. I'm not even going to say it. I'm going to say this, though. We need to be more turnover minded. We need to be more thinking about getting our hands on the football than just breaking up passes. Yes, every now and then you're going to turn your head around, and maybe there was a little bit too much space between you and that receiver, and the ball gets caught. You can still turn around and make a tackle. Maybe once in a while, because of that, the guy gets away, scores a touchdown. Price of doing business. 3 things happen when that ball goes up in the air on a deep ball, whether it's a post, it's a corner, or it's a fade ball. The ball is going to be overthrown. In that case, No harm, no foul. Nobody catches the football. Whether you're looking back or not, no one catches it. It's overthrown. The ball is thrown right on time, and a perfectly thrown pass is hard to defend whether you're looking at the receiver or not. Chances are he catches that ball anyway. You're hoping for luck at that point. If you're not looking, you're hoping you stick a hand in there right at that moment that the ball is coming and landing on his hands. That's what you're hoping for at that moment. So, we don't want to be in the business of luck. We want to be in the business of, making a strong play. We want to be in the business of causing and forcing turnovers. That's where we want to live. That's the point where we want to be. So we don't want to be staring at the receiver's face and all we're thinking about is just trying to break up the pass. That's not how we want this thing to go. We want to get rid of any anxiety that we may have. And I'll talk about the reasons why guys may not want to turn their head around in these situations, some of the things that I've learned in coaching and training. But we want to be more in the mindset of intercepting the football and taking the ball away. And the really only way for that to happen is to get our head around and catch and see the ball and catch the ball. There might be instances where you throw your hand into the receiver's hands and the ball lands in there and somehow you pull it out. We did have a play like that on Sunday, I believe it was. And it wasn't on a ball thrown. It was Tyreek Stevenson reaching in the basket on a receiver and then pulling the ball out after the receiver had caught the ball. But there may be instances where something like that might happen for you. That could potentially happen. However, you're going to make more plays when you get vision on the ball and go make the play. And this is something that's going to have to be corrected in practice. So far as my theories as to why guys don't want to turn their heads around, most of the time it's out of fear. And that is because you're just not comfortable in tracking a football. So there have been times where I've had training sessions and I will just run players down the field without a wide receiver around them. All right. I'm just throwing the ball down the field and they will misjudge the football. So that means you're lacking in this skill of just playing the football. All right. You weren't a receiver before. So it's odd for you to just be running down the field by yourself and catching the football. You have to do that. If you're doing that and you're not catching every one of those footballs or that's being thrown to you, or you're misjudging any amount of those footballs, then you have got to get on that quick, fast, and in a hurry. Immediately. You've got to stay after practice and start doing more deep ball drills. All right. Now, when you say you got to get into catching the football and I need to catch more footballs, guys think that is just standing in front of your friend and he's throwing the ball to you from 10, 15 yards away. No, it's not just that. And if you do need that, then so be it. The catching the football from 10 to 15 yards away is more about just your hands being solid and catching the ball. But what I'm talking about here is actually tracking the football. So you're running at a great distance and the ball's being thrown from a great distance away from you. And you need to track that ball from 40 or 50 yards away and actually catch it. Be where that ball is going to be and end up catching the football. That's what you need to do. And so you need a whole lot more practice doing that. Because tracking the football is part of catching the football, especially on deep balls. If you've watched there's some DBs out there that will misjudge footballs and they'll go right over their heads. They've been in good position. They're right there next to the receiver. They turn around. They stutter step when the ball is still going deep and they don't track it right, goes right into the receiver's hands. You have to be able to take care of that right now. You've got to catch more footballs because I don't want to be this harsh, but you're kind of worthless if that's where you're at, because you're going to do good stuff at the line of scrimmage. You're going to press. You're going to do well there. All right. I'm assuming you can do those things. That's why you're in the game. But when that ball is thrown deep, and you're going to get a lot of fades out of press. We know that, right? You're going to get a lot of fades out of press. If you can't judge that ball, and you either have to be a guy that stares at the receiver's face And that's the only way you can defend the ball, is to just try and wait for it to go into his hands and then take it out of his hands. That's not going to be a really good proposition for you. You're going to win less than 50 of those. And the better the receiver is, the less of chance you're going to have of winning those. Or you're going to be a guy that turns around and can't really judge the ball, misjudge it, and the worst thing happens. It ends up in the receiver's hands, and then you're not even in a position to make a tackle after that, and it ends up being a touchdown. It won't be long before they pull you off the field. I'm just telling you that right now. That's what's going to end up happening. They're going to end up pulling you off of the field. You can't continue to play in that situation. So my recommendation is, guys, catch more footballs. And while you're in practice and you're running down the field with a receiver, get your head around. If you're going to fail at this thing, you got to have it start happening to you in practice first, and then figure out how you're going to win in those situations. But you got to be turnover minded, and it's going to start in practice. Get your head around in 7-on-7 and team when the ball is being thrown, when a receiver takes you on the deep ball. If you're at or near his hip, get your head around. You're going to start to notice what it is that I'm telling you about. A majority of deep balls are underthrown. And if they're underthrown, that's your opportunity to catch the ball. You're going to be in a better position to catch the football than that wide receiver is if you get your head around. If you don't get your head around, you're almost guaranteed to get a penalty, because these guys are going to just run into you. They're going to throw their hands up in the air, and they're going to, beg for the flag that they're going to get from the referee. You guys know what I'm talking about. You've seen it. All right. If the ball is thrown right on time and you're in the receiver's hip, it's 50-50 chance. All right. And if you're really turnover minded and you go attack the football, you are inside of that guy. So unless that quarterback makes a very nice throw to the receiver's outside shoulder on a fade, which there's only a handful of guys that could do that semi-consistently, you're going to be on the inside and you're going to have a better chance at that football. And then, of course, if it's overthrown, no one's getting it. You're going to start to notice that if you just start turning your head around. But it's something that's going to have to be practiced. So I recommend that you guys get on that quick, fast, and in a hurry. That's my little term for that I'm going to be using today. I'm going to abuse that one. All right, time now for the mailbag. And before I answer this question, as I say every week, the best way to get your question answered on the Indy Drills podcast is to go ahead and comment on this podcast that you're watching right now. Matter of fact, everyone watching this right now, if you've reached this part of the video, I need you to find some question that you have about DB play. It might be something that you already know, but you just want confirmation on, something you need to be reminded about, or something you just simply don't know and you've always wondered about DB play. I don't care if you're a DB, a coach, or you're a fan watching this. If you've gotten this far, in that comment section down below, ask a question about DB play and let's get an answer to it. If I think it's worthy and I want to use it in the next Indy Drills podcast, I'll pull it from there. I might even answer in the comment section down below, hey, I will answer this in the next Indy Drills podcast. Other than that, though, I'm going to answer any of the questions that get put down there. So if you're watching this right now, let me know by just asking a DB question. Who I think is the best. If you don't have anything about technique or whatever, or who do I think is the best at something, whatever. Ask a DB question in that comment section down below. If you're just listening to this on your podcast streamer, Anchor, Spotify, or Apple Podcast, something of that nature, I believe Anchor does have the feature where you can ask a question. Go ahead and do it there. If not, send me your question to cwilson@alleye'sdbcamp.com. Again, that's cwilson@alleye'sdbcamp.com. Drop that question there, and I may choose that on the next Indy Drills podcast. But today's question is a good one. We're into the season, so stuff like this happens. Derek in Ohio says, we're a heavy man team, and we are seeing a lot of condensed, bunch, and stacked sets. What should we do to combat that? Great question, Derek. It's something that happens quite often. You should take this as a badge of honor, because you only do this on offense if the team that you're playing against plays a lot of man coverage and plays it well. If you weren't playing it well, trust me, they wouldn't condense. They'll stay spread out, and they will just beat your DBs left and right. They will take their chances against your press coverage and just get guys wide open or get some separation and just go about it that way. The fact that they feel the need to change what it is that they do is a tribute to what you guys are doing in your secondary. So kudos to you for that. All right, that kudos only goes so far if teams are getting the upper hand on you now by getting into bunch sets, condensing the splits. And that basically means that instead of having the wide receivers out wide by the numbers and out by the hashes, they're bringing them all the way down in tight, similar to a lot of the stuff that you'll see run by guys like Sean Payton, who did a lot of that in New Orleans with Drew Brees and is doing it now in Denver with Bo Nix. You'll get a lot of those. They just take the guys and bring them in real close to the line of scrimmage. Then there's stacked sets where you put a receiver in front, another receiver right behind him to keep that guy from getting pressed, the guy in the back. And then, of course, bunch sets where you take a trip set and you just really squeeze it down and put it right next to the offensive line. So my first thing that I'm going to say to you, Derek, is don't stop being aggressive. That's the main thing they want you to stop being. They want you to back off and now start playing a bunch of zone or try to pick up the receivers in your man coverage 4, 5, 6, 7 yards down the field. That's the first thing they want you to do. They want to take away of your aggression. I say amp up your aggression against those sets. Here's the thing people need to understand about condensed sets. They're no good for the receivers if you on defense continue to be aggressive. Instead of backing off, get up near that line of scrimmage versus those condensed sets, because you know what the receivers don't have a lot of? Space. When they condense down and the slot guy is right next to the offensive tackle and the outside wide receiver is right next to that slot who's right next to that tackle, there's not a lot of room to maneuver in there. On top of that, your defensive end is right off that edge too. So they're in a hallway. And if you stand at the end of the hallway, all right, which would be 5, 6, 7 yards off, you're giving them space. But if you go meet them right there at that end of the hallway where they are, that means get up near the line of scrimmage, take that outside leverage, and be aggressive on that outside shoulder. You're going to eventually get them out of those sets. The receivers aren't going to like it. All right. Don't overplay that outside leverage. You can shade them, but be aggressive. And every now and then hit them with some quick jams, come across the line of scrimmage. Because if you think about a bunch set or one of those condensed sets, there's the offensive tackle right there. And then there's your defensive end outside of that offensive tackle. So going inside right away as either one of those receivers, the slot or the outside guy, is prohibited by that defensive end being there. So if you set up on his outside shoulder, there's a defensive end right to his inside shoulder. There's not much room for him to work with there. So at least one or two of your guys need to be aggressive on those sets. Now, I understand you want to be at different levels because when you get those condensed sets, guys can crisscross and do all kinds of things. You want to keep your banjo rules on that, of course, but don't do it to a point where you just back everyone off and you get kind of loose in your coverage and you allow those guys to run underneath uninhibited. They don't get touched. They go run their shallow routes. They go run their crossing routes and no one ever touches them. If you're going to get in close to other guys, I'm going to trap you in that small amount of space and I'm going to make it very difficult for you. You can't run away from me. Then also there's back to front rules that you can use when you get those stacked formations. Love to explain that to you, but I have just done an entire post on that right now in the All Eyes DB Camp members area. Did it last week. It's right there fresh for you. A great way to handle those stacked sets. All right. Same thing with the bunch. You want to be aggressive on that point man because the two back routes usually have to maneuver their way around that front guy. So you want to be aggressive on that. I don't like to see defenses laying off of the point man and bunch when they're trying to play man. I don't like them doing that in zone. I think even in zone, if you're going to play zone against that bunch set, you still got to get up there and harass one of those guys, and that guy ought to be the bunch guy, the point man who has two receivers to his outside and doesn't have the liberty of going wherever he wants, taking super wide releases. We need to use that against them. So the biggest thing I'm going to tell you is just continue to be aggressive, get your guys up there in the line of scrimmage. The other thing I will say is have 2 or 3 ways to defend those sets. Have 2 or 3 ways to defend the bunch. Don't just go up there and say, well, this is how we defend bunch each and every time that it's run. No, you're going to get plotted against by that offensive coordinator. He needs to see two different ways that you do it. Now you turn it into a guessing game for him as he's trying to select a play. When he's going to select a play, he has to figure out, well, are they going to use version 1 or version 2? Or is there a version 3 that I need to worry about? If you just line up in the same thing every time, there's no guessing involved. He could sit down and draw up a very nice play that takes advantage of your coverage rule. So have several different ways. So those are the two big things that I would tell you against that. Give those a try, and then get back to me and let me know exactly how that worked out. All right. So thanks for the question, Derek in Ohio. And for the rest of you guys out there, once again, the best way to get your question answered on the next Indy Drills podcast is to post it in the comment section down below. Outside of that, you can send your question to cwilson@alliesdbcamp.com. And finally, if you're watching this, just ask a DB question down below. Could be about technique, could be about strategy, could be about personnel, guys. I think the best players that you see playing, whatever. Ask your DB question down below. Let's get it going. All right. Moving on now to the main topic, and that is something that I've really, in watching games, both college and pro, namely college, though, is something that I think we need to address quick, fast, and in a hurry. That is communication in the secondary. I'm seeing too many situations where guys are running absolutely free in the secondary. And part of what I think is happening is we're running a lot of things. We're running a lot of coverages. We're running coverages with way too many checks. All right. And I'm talking to my coaches now. Once you start getting past 3 checks in your particular coverage, I think it's time to change the name of the coverage. A lot of coaches out here are filling your players' heads up with too much stuff, and they're moving in slow motion. And then on top of that, they're messing it up anyway. I think it's you do yourself a big disservice by having that much information in a player's head while they're playing. Yes, you want smart players. Yes, you want to be innovative. You want to be creative. You don't want to make it easy for offensive coordinators, but you're undoing yourself, okay? You're untying your shoes if the players themselves can't communicate effectively pre-snap. They can't communicate post-snap, and then guys are running wide open. I think that's a lot of what's going on. You know how we all have PCs or anything that requires memory to run. Once you fill it up with too much stuff, if you take your hard drive at home and you max it out and there's just a couple of bytes open and free it's going to delay the way your computer works. It's not going to be as fast. So it's going to take a long time to do anything on that computer. Takes a long time for it to compute too much data, too much stuff for it to run through to get to where it is you want to go. Same thing is happening with players out on the field. You're filling their heads up with all of these different coverages, and you got to make a check for this and that, and there's different names and terminology and a whole bunch of stuff going on, and you're slowing down the computer in their minds. You're slowing down their brains. And so now for all of their athleticism that they may have come in with, that they trained for in the offseason, they can't use any of it because their mind is jogging. It's too full. And I'll go back to this again. Once you go past 3 checks on a coverage, just come up with another name. All right. You're going to help them with that. They're going to put this in a different compartment. Oh, okay. This is not the club check or the Q check or the whatever check you want to. Oh, this is now cover 2. It was cover 6 before. Now it's cover 2, just as an example. That is going to help them immensely. It's a whole nother coverage now. All right. That's number 1. Number 2 is let's start thinking about how much stuff you're running. You know how sometimes your budget, you run over your budget, whether it's for your home, your personal finance, or for your business. You start realizing there's way too much outflows than there are inflows, and we need to cut the budget. Take a look at your call sheet. Take a look at all of the coverages that you're running and start thinking about some of the things that you need to cut. You want these guys moving fast. All right. You need them moving fast. So let's just start there. And another part is you're running so much stuff that the guys don't even get good training in the individual tools that they need to run it, because you're occupying your individual time, the time that's usually should be devoted towards developing skills, whether that's a back pedal or your press man or flipping your hips or all of that, all of the things you need to do to be in the right place in all of these coverages. you have sacrificed that with trying to learn the coverage. So they're learning the coverage. They may be learning the coverage, but they don't have the tools to really execute them because they're not working on the individual skills. Defensive back is a highly skilled position. I would dare say it is the most highly skilled position. And if there's anything that runs close to it, it's offensive line. Highly skilled. You don't walk backwards all day. So there's a lot of things that need to be developed there that have to be repeated. Okay. There's a lot of repetition that's involved there. So if you're not giving them the opportunity to develop those skills, even though they may learn where it is they're supposed to be in the coverages, they still won't execute them right. All right. So let's get down to the communications piece, and I'm probably talking more to the players now. But this is also coaches, because you're going to have to coach the communication part. It's going to have to be a big part of what you do, like emphasizing it, especially in your walkthroughs. But not only just that, you're going to want to have your film sessions be not silent, not where as a coach, you're the only one talking in the meeting. When you have your calls in for the week and you're watching film, and whatever day that is, the first time that you do it, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, you've got to tell your safeties. And if you're the defensive coordinator, you got to have your linebackers. We're talking in here. We're talking in this meeting. We're talking while this film is running. You see that play come up that the team is running. I need my linebacker or my safety, whoever is responsible for that. I need you calling the strength. Corners, I need you calling out the number of guys that you have to your side. That's a big thing too. All right. You got to involve the corners in the pre-snap communication, because if you don't, they'll just be silent guys the whole time. And corners now need to talk. So get them started by when that huddle breaks. Okay. They immediately know they need to be speaking. Hey, I got two to my side. I got three. I got one, whatever the case may be.
Parents, dads out there, if you're trying to get your kid to the next level, you're trying to get him to the level of elite skills, you've got to use these resources that I have available to you. One is my book, 101 DB Tips. It's the greatest book out there for DBs. Everything on covering man, playing zone, playing corner, playing safety, how to study film. It's an excellent resource for your young tyke that's trying to become a big-time DB. Also, the All Eyes DB Camp members area is a superpower. Over 200 videos in there on all types of things like how to play coverages, technique, strategy breakdowns, and more. Two great resources for your young guy if you're trying to get him to the next level. Take advantage of them. Link down in the description below.
That gets them talking. The other part that it does is kind of set things for the linebackers and maybe a safety that's involved in something else. If I've got one on my side, that tells me we probably got three, maybe even four to the other side. So I'm quickly understanding what I've got going on. Okay, you're helping the linebackers, the near linebacker who doesn't have as good as an angle as the corner and seeing exactly what's come out there. And you might be helping a safety who's preoccupied with some other things. I got two. All right, we're probably looking at a 2x2 set, double set, because, there's a back in the backfield. If there's no back in the backfield, safety sees that, linebacker sees that, two to this side. I've got two on my side and there's no back in the backfield, means three to the other side. Here, we've got an empty set. This is what we've got going on. So the corners start talking. Everyone's talking. And you've got to get that going in the meeting. So when the team breaks out of the huddle or they're on the ball right away, because not everyone huddles anymore, get the corners talking. Linebacker calls the strength. Safety's calling the formation. And if there's a trade or a motion, he calls out the check. You got to get that going in the meeting. Then you take it out to the walkthrough period. You just take what you were doing in terms of communication in the meeting, you're taking that now out to the walkthrough period, and they've already kind of been prepped for it. So we're just repeating what we did in the meeting. Now that we've done that in the meeting and in the walkthrough, it's not as hard for us to do it in 7-on-7 and in team. It's not new. We've been doing this already. We did it already at the 3:30 meeting. We did it already at the 4:15 walkthrough. Now it's 4:45, 5 o'clock. I'm doing it again for the third time. So it's not that hard. And now we're doing it as the players are moving full speed. All right. You've got to get that confusion out of the way. And here's what happens if you do it in a meeting. If you're doing it in a meeting, you're going to recognize before you get out on the field where there is a disconnect, where there's some confusion. If a guy's making the wrong checks, if we're having a problem calling the strength, if we're having a problem calling out the number of guys out there, and it's from the video, you already realize that we have a problem. The problem might be a certain player who can't get this right, or there's something that the offense is doing that's causing us a problem. We are fixing this and we're being made aware of it at the 3:30 meeting. If it happens in the walkthrough, we're getting that addressed, taken care of in the walkthrough before we get out and we're facing the live bullets. The first time you have a communication problem, you don't want to pick that up in 7-on-7 or team. That you don't want that to be the first time that you realize that there's a communication problem. You want to find that out early as you can. So maybe if we're recognizing the problem in the film session, when we get out to the walkthrough, we can maybe cut. We're not going to run this coverage. All right, we're not going to run this coverage. It's causing us a problem, or we're going to go fix it while we're in this walkthrough. And if we can't fix it in this walkthrough, maybe we don't need to run this in the 7-on-7 today. This is going to be a problem for us if we're having these problems here. It might run into the game, and then that's how a guy ends up wide open on a post route and no one knows. Okay, so get the communication as early as possible. Do it in all of those phases. And it also gets your guys prepped and ready to be communicators. Okay. Corners and safeties got to talk together. And if possible, I know it might be difficult at the high school level, should be able to happen in college. We certainly did that. One of the best things about the secondary my senior year when I was at the University of Miami is that we would all watch film together and we'll talk about things in there. And I'm going to just be honest. This happens, coaches, all right, coordinators, we'll make side deals in there. But we were able to make the side deals in the early middle part of the week. We don't make them on game day where they might fall apart. Okay. And what's a side deal? A side deal is, hey, look, I see a play where I can take advantage. I've got a good idea of when this play is coming, whether based on the situation or the alignment or whatever. I got a beat on this. This is going to be my play. I say, hey, look, we might be in this coverage right here where I'm required to be in this third. Hey, listen, man, I need you to get me on this one. We're going to come up with whatever our signal is. It might be a look, a tap somewhere, or just a little keyword we're going to yell out. All right, I need you to get me. I'm going in on this one. You get me over the top. We've made plenty of side deals. All right. That only happens when you have good communication and you guys watch film together. So if you have that situation, players in high school, maybe you guys all go to a one player's house. You guys all watch the huddle together. Get that done. And of course you can get that done. You guys can get online and play all your Madden games for 2-3 hours together, or do all the other stuff that you get together to make a TikTok or whatever videos, all the stuff that you guys do. You can't tell me kids in this day and age can't do something. You guys can do it all. Get together as a unit and go watch film for at least an hour during the week. Watch film as a unit. Both corners, both safeties, and if there's a nickel guy in there, you guys run a heavy nickel system, 4-2-5 or something like that. All of you guys get in there and you watch film together and you start talking, and you guys can communicate there. You guys can get to a point where in a game, all it takes is a look between that corner and the safety. All it takes is a look between the corner and the nickel, or the nickel and the safety, and you guys already know. We're already on the same page. We don't even have to say a word. All right. This stems from you guys watching film together and understanding what that offense is doing, and then how you're going to attack it in the individual coverages. But the more you guys get into talking off the field, away from the field, the more you'll be able to do it on the field. And as safeties, if you're a leader as a safety, you've got to encourage communication from your corners, because I'm here to tell you, we'll be silent out there. We'll be trapped in our own world. And if I can, take up the side of corners, man, it's difficult to be lined up a yard or two away from a receiver who's a good athlete, that's a baller, and have my mind on a whole bunch of other things. Okay. We get criticized as corners for not communicating. Hey, man, go stand right there in front of DK Metcalf or Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase and want to have a whole bunch of things in your mind. You want to be locked in. So even when it's a zone, you're just in that mode. But as safeties, you've got to get your corners prepped and primed to communicate. Okay. And if I give you a signal, if I make a check, if I tell you the coverage has changed, I need you to signal back to me. As a corner, you might not want to look back for fear of the ball being snapped and a guy taking off on you. But, a tap behind the back or a tap of the helmet or whatever, just signifying that, oh, I heard the check and I'm in there. I know it has changed from this coverage to that coverage, helps. Don't just sit there and be silent. Safeties don't let that happen. You need to communicate. Then you need confirmation that the communication was, you need read receipts. Okay. You need a read receipt from that corner so that we're all on the same page, because some of that happens sometimes. You're saying something to that corner. You don't know if he got it. You think he got it. He didn't get it. So he sits in the flat. You sit in the post, and the guy's wide open. All right. It starts with communication. Too many busted coverages out there. So you guys use some of these things that I talked about today. I gave some information here for coaches. I gave some information here for safeties, corners, and nickels. Get on this stuff right now, because it really sucks, man, to put in that work all week long, have these coverages in. You put in, all your technique work, and just because of a miscommunication, team gets an 80-yard touchdown. All right. And you end up losing the game over it. Or you had a shutout going, and you gave up your shutout because of a miscommunication. It wasn't even a physical thing where a guy got beat. It's off of a miscommunication, something that could have been avoided. So the bottom line is, start the communication in the meetings. If you can, get together as a unit and watch film together. Okay. And so everyone is super on the same page, and you guys can just look at each other, or, you come up with your own little signals to, kind of make sure everyone is on the same page, and you have to commit yourself to it. The communication as coaches, correct it when it's not happening each and every time. Don't let a guy get away with it. Safeties, be leaders. You need confirmation when you communicate a check to your players, whether that's the nickel guy or it's the corner or even the linebackers too. Get the read receipts. Okay. If you do those three things, you're on your way to playing better in the secondary and reducing the amount of busts. It's hard enough to cover some of these offenses, okay, because of their explosive plays and the rules that are for them, and the no huddles and all that. If you're going to just give them easy yards and touchdowns because you're not talking right, well, then, what are we doing here? At least fix that part of it. Okay. You can kill a lot of the big plays just by having the proper communication. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Indy Drills podcast. On your way out, once again, check out the link down below for the book, 101 DB Tips, chock full of information that you need to raise your game to the top level. It's the elite defensive back reference guide. It's the best one out there. Also, check out the All Eyes DB Camp members area. Some of the stuff that I talked about in this show today is right in there. I talked about defending those stack receiver sets. I just did a post on that in there, telling you the best ways to do that. I have information in there on defending the bunch routes and the bunch sets. Talk about that in there. Of course, there's a whole bunch of strategy, technique stuff, technique breakdowns. I have quizzes in there so that you guys make sure you understand the coverages. And there's the daily DB tips. And then you can also communicate with me in there. Not only me, but other people in the community. It's not just me in there. So everyone can talk to everyone in there. You can chat. You can get in on discussion threads, all that kind of good stuff. So if you're not in there, man, you're missing out on some really great stuff that's going to raise your game. That's going to, take this season in a place where you didn't think it could even go. So you're in season. This is the time to be in there for your coaches. Bunch of solutions. You can get answers to your questions there and not have to go into that game wondering if something's going to work. You can get some really good answers to some questions and, defeat some things that might be coming your way. All right, that's it for me. I'm out of here. As always, All Eyes DB Camp. Consistency breeds results.